O'Brien himself on the election stump said that those homes would be available at prices of €250,000 or less for first-time buyers and others. Yet when we saw the final text of the programme for government, gone was that crucial commitment. Despite that, the Minister spent the first 2 weeks, having been appointed, promising to deliver affordable homes at prices between €160,000 and €250,000. And yet, astonishingly, just like the disappearance of affordable homes in the programme for government, so too had that commitment disappeared in the budget. There was no increase in the Service Sites Fund on the monies already committed by Fine Gael, despite that that's the crucial mechanism for delivering affordable homes through local authorities, and just a measly €35 million for 400 affordable cost rental homes this year. And while they're welcome, it is nowhere close to the thousands of affordable rental homes recommended to government by the Housing Agency, the Economic, Social and Research Institute and the National Economic and Social Council. What we did get, of course, is back to the bad old days of Fianna Fáil and the Celtic Tiger, the increase to the Help to Buy scheme, which hasn't just been criticised by the opposition. Again, NESC and the ESRI have both said it will push up demand at a time of limited supply and, in turn, push up prices. But worse than that, we have the introduction of a toxic shared equity loan scheme. And again, it's not just the opposition who are criticising this. The most senior official in the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, in emails to the Department of Housing, said that this will increase house prices. At least it will lock in the unsustainable level of house prices currently, if not push them up further. Now, the really interesting thing about this scheme is it wasn't in the Fianna Fáil or indeed Fine Gael manifesto. This scheme was written and designed by two property industry lobby groups at the start of 2020. And how did I know? Because they came and met all of the housing spokespeople at that time, me included. It is based on a very controversial and well-criticised scheme in the United Kingdom. And what it will do is it will also lock in and push up unsustainably high prices while loading working families with ever greater levels of debt. Not satisfied with this, the Minister seems intent on bringing the banks into this shared equity loan. He's currently in negotiations through the Banking and Payments Federation. They want to double the €75 million of state money with another €75 million of banking money. There is a dispute, I understand, between government and the Banking Federation on the interest payment. But no matter what the level of interest, all this will do is saddle hard-working people with ever greater and at the outset unquantifiable levels of debt, all the while banks profit. And this is simply no way to address our housing crisis. And all the while, because of the failures of Fine Gael and now Fianna Fáil housing policy, house prices and rents continue to spiral out of control. We saw the important report from the Society of Chartered Surveyors this week, and it makes for grim reading for those wanting to rent or buy at affordable prices. The cheapest suburban apartment currently under construction is €359,000. The cheapest city centre apartment here in Dublin is €439,000. Minister, who can buy these kinds of apartments? Not ordinary working people, even working people on good incomes. And that's why over 70% of these properties are actually being built by build-to-rent developers. But that's not enough, because, of course, despite the fact that they'd be bought to rent, the rents are also sky high. They range between €1,850 per month, the cheapest out in the suburbs, to €2,600 per month in the city centre. I mean, how does anybody think that hard-working single people, let alone couples, can afford those kinds of prices and still have a decent standard of living? Now, of course, what the Society of Chartered Surveyors report clearly shows is that Fine Gael's housing policy has failed. This is the consequence of a decade of Fine Gael politicians and ministers not taking housing affordability seriously. And it has failed to deliver affordable homes to working people. In fact, Owen Murphy in 2018 introduced the Service Sites Fund. From the opposition benches, Deputy O'Brien, as he was then, claimed credit for that €300 million. They promised to deliver 6,200 affordable homes by 2021. And how many of those have been delivered? Not a single one. Only about 150 currently in construction. We don't know when they'll be ready, if this year, or what the final price will be. And what is the Fianna Fáil response within 6 months in government? To throw even more fuel onto the flames of house and rent inflation, and to continue all the while to underinvest in genuine affordable homes to rent or buy, not increasing the targets for social housing as outlined by Fingal in the National Development Plan, or indeed the measures to invest in local authority-led affordable homes to rent or buy. Now, of course, as we all know, there is an alternative. Not just the opposition, but a increasing range of voices in industry, in the NGO sector, in the academy are saying, Minister, with negative interest rates for government borrowing, now is the time to invest directly in local authority and approved housing body-led affordable homes that working people could buy without hidden equity charges or without spiralling costs to buy or to rent. But the scale of capital investment that would be required would be to double what was agreed in the budget just a few short months ago. We need in the region of €3 billion to deliver at least 20,000 public homes, social and affordable, each year. Now, the Minister promised that figure when he was campaigning during the election. He said Fianna Fáil would deliver 50,000 social homes and 50,000 affordable homes. Yet now that he's in office, and when Sinn Féin proposes that, he said it's not achievable, there's no planning permissions, there's no delivery mechanism. Well, if he thinks that now, why did he promise the very same targets as Sinn Féin during the election? Or maybe, as Pat Rabbitte famously said, that's just the kind of thing you do to win elections. So in the remaining 3 minutes I have before my colleague Deputy Gould steps in, I'd like to ask the Minister some very simple questions. Now, he's developing a reputation for bluff and bluster, so maybe in this short exchange he'll give some very direct and simple answers to direct and simple questions. So my first question, Minister, is as follows. How many affordable homes to rent and buy will be delivered by government this year? All I'm looking is a number, Minister, not a speech.
Minister.
The Deputy raises and asks those questions whilst we're in the middle of a construction shutdown due to a pandemic.
I'm just asking for the number, Minister. Do you know how many affordable homes will be delivered this year?
I won't be badgered
Do you know?
Deputy, let the Minister.
I think, in fairness, you might show some respect for the Chamber and some respect for the office. All I'd say is that Sinn Féin have never delivered affordable home. We've secured 110 million for affordable homes.
Last Cancor, on a point of order, I've asked for a question. The Minister
has made his speech. I'm not going to be badgered.
It's shocked, please. It's no point of order. You've asked a question. Minister, please, if you could answer the question.
I'm actually happy to answer it. But we've secured funding to deliver.
How many units, Minister?
Look, there's no point. I'm not entering into this, Last Cancor. If every time I stand up, there's no point. He doesn't actually want the answer.
What that tells us, Last Cancor, and I have the greatest respect both for this House and for the Last Cancor, I don't have a respect for a minister who won't answer a straight question. And the answer is this. Minister, I have the floor, Minister. You've had your time for a speech.
He talked me down. He would not let me respond to the question.
The straight answer is this.
Unbelievable. That's fine.
Minister,
carry on with your game,
Minister and member, please.
I have the floor, Last Cancor, for 1 minute left.
You had the floor. The Minister had the floor after to answer the question. If you're not happy, please.
Sure, Last Cancor.
We're going to waste time and you're going to eat into your colleagues' time. Minister, do you want to answer the question?
I would love to answer the question if I wasn't interrupted.
If the Minister will answer the question directly, please. How many units will you deliver this year, Minister, for hard-working people to rent or buy?
You might let me answer the question now. The target for public homes this year is 12,750. I'm going to. Last Cancor, this is beyond ridiculous now. If you won't let me, I'm not blaming you at all.
Thank you.
At all, and I respect you completely on this. He won't even let me answer the question. The target set for this year for public homes, to put it in context, is 12,750. 9,500 built, the largest amount ever set in the history of the state. Now, in relation to affordable, if you would stop shouting, Owen, this is beyond ridiculous.
Deputy O'Brien, you've asked a question.
You're being ridiculous,
would you please let the Minister
and you're being
answer
juvenile.
It?
You're being juvenile. Let me answer the question,
Minister,
please.
can we have the answer, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
I will, and thank you, Alaska Corla, for trying to put some type of control on the Deputy. 400 affordable rental homes will be delivered this year. And I'll be making... Look, I should be allowed to answer the question, okay? And people may be interested because in the answer to this, you may not, that's fine, because what you'll always do is try to play politics with a situation. 400 affordable rental homes, there have not, and a national affordable rental scheme will be launched this year, and 400 homes will be tenanted this year. And actually in the coming couple of weeks, if not in the next week, we'll be announcing those specific areas of where the homes will be delivered. And we put out the call on that, and we've done it. It's not just bluster from you. We've done it. Now, in relation to...
No, Minister, I'm sorry. So just at this point, no, just let me clarify something. Just please, Deputy Deputy Gold is waiting to get in.
Oh, I'll let him in, so.
Thank you.
I'll let him in, absolutely.
Thank you. Deputy Gold.
Minister, the latest manager's report from Cork City Council states that there are 8,913 individuals and families on the housing list in Cork City alone. This doesn't include all those on HAP or on the RAW scheme. On average, 1,054 new applications is received in Cork annually. Cork City built approximately 600 houses in 2020, and before you mention the issues because of COVID, the previous year they built 654. So, Minister, the question is, I suppose firstly I want to state that Cork City Council is recognised as one of the best local authorities for delivering social housing, and they meet all the government targets that are set out every year. But my issue here is the government targets aren't good enough, they're not big enough, and to put it simply, the government's targets are too low, and you know it. And the department knows it. The targets you set will never solve the housing crisis. It's as simple as this. If you have 9,000 people and families on the housing list, with 1,000 new applications coming on every year, and you're building 600 houses, you will never solve the housing crisis. No, Minister, surely you know this. Surely the people in the department know this. At least the bare minimum you have to do is build the amount of people who are coming on the list every year, plus extra, if you're going to tackle the crisis. So we need a huge... You're not providing enough funding for Cork City Council and other local authorities to build the social housing to tackle the crisis. These are the figures. Your department gets the figures every month from Cork City. So for you to be coming in here telling us about all the great work, and that's one of the other big issues. Housing Minister after Housing Minister has come into the Dáil with new plans telling people how they're going to solve the housing crisis. And people ring me in my office and they say, Thomas, I hope we can get one of those houses. But those houses aren't being delivered at all because the list keeps going up and up. So it is estimated that in 4 years' time, Cork City Council's housing waiting list will be over 12,000 individuals and families. And I put it this way, there are 911 families and individuals on Cork City Council's housing list over 12 years. It's a scandal. 12 years on the list, 911 families and individuals. So I'm listening here to the Minister, and he's talking about what he's hoping to do. This is what's happening now. This is what people are living with. There's so much more I could say, but just one point I want to raise with the Minister in relation to, I attended a meeting yesterday about the LDA's development on St. Kevin's site in Cork to build 266 units. 10% of them, 27 apartments, are being provided for social housing. So that means 90% of the plan as it is now, that the closing date for submissions is tomorrow, are publicly out to the public for private purchase. How can you stand over that? And I want to ask the Minister a question. Will he put in a submission tomorrow to the Board Penala to provide more than 10% social housing to increase it? And also, I'd ask the Minister here today, I'd also ask the Minister, will he look to extend the date for submissions because the people in the community don't know. There's been no engagement with residents, community groups. There's no transport infrastructure, there's no roads infrastructure, but the LDA want to rush this ahead. So, Minister, I would just ask you, will you write to them to extend it for 4 weeks so that people can put in submissions? And will you put in the submission looking for more than 10%
Thank you, Deputy. No, unfortunately, you've left the Minister no time to respond, so I'm going to move on to
Minister, I want to ask you about the shared equity scheme. You frequently cite the British shared equity loan scheme, and I assume that your proposed scheme economic policy is completely wrong-headed. Secondly, the scheme, if rolled out, could have an immediate impact on the share prices of developers in the state. A study by Jeff Meeks of Cambridge University found that in the 3 years before the shared equity scheme was rolled out in Britain, that the share price of leading developers increased in line with share prices of the FTSE 350. But in the 4 years after the shared equity scheme was introduced, share prices of the FTSE on the FTSE 350 they had risen by 47%, while share prices of leading developers rose by 230%. So shareholders, managers and CEOs prospered under the shared equity scheme in Britain, and the impact here is likely to be no different. You've already heard from the most senior civil servant in Deeper that your proposal is about lining the pockets of developers, but sure, isn't that the spots that Fianna Fáil always wore? But my immediate concern here is in relation to the impact that this scheme will have on the borrowers and the market. In 2019, the British National Audit Office published a progress report on the scheme. It found that 63% of buyers could have bought a property without the scheme. So, under your intended scheme, it's understood that the taxpayer would take a 30% equity stake in all new builds purchased. To be clear, this is the taxpayer investing in the property market. As Gareth Davids, head of the British National Audit Office, commented, the scheme has exposed the government and the taxpayer to significant risk if property values fall. The risks extend to borrowers. The same progress report found that buyers who want to sell their property soon after they purchase it might find that they are in negative equity. This concern was raised also in February 2020 by the FCA, the British equivalent of the central bank. The FCA warned that borrowers who had availed of the shared equity loan scheme were more likely to face negative equity if property prices fall. So my understanding, and you can clarify this, that under your proposed scheme is that first-time buyers will require a deposit of 10% of the property value, that an SPV will be established taking 30% equity for the state, and that the buyer then taking a mortgage worth 60% of the property value. From year 6, the property will be interest-only payments on the equity, with the equity to be paid on the sale of the property or at the end of the mortgage term. Now, this could mean that buyers taking out an overall debt equivalent of more than 5 times their income, circumventing the central bank's mortgage measures and loan-to-income limits. These measures were put in place to protect borrowers and to avoid the central bank in what it describes as a credit house spiral. By circumventing these rules, the scheme risks such a credit house spiral, Minister. So my questions to you, and hopefully you can clarify some of these matters here before us, and maybe respond also to what Robert Watt has claimed in terms of your scheme is about filling the pockets or lining the pockets of developers. But what are you setting up an SPV with any retail banks to manage this equity scheme? First question. Second question, what rate of interest will be charged on this equity? Will it vary annually? And if so, how? On the third question, can you guarantee that the taxpayer will fully recoup the equity invest? Fourth, will a first-time buyer under the scheme be able to take out combined loans worth more than 5 times their salary? And the last question and fifth question, will you be able to tell a first-time buyer who uses the scheme the full cost of his or her repayments for the full term?
Minister, unfortunately, you have just over 50 seconds.
It's okay, Count Corla. Look, the scheme is still being worked through, and there's a number of affordability measures that we're bringing forward. About 468 million in budget 2021 that covers Service Sites Fund, Rebuilding Ireland Home Loan, Help to Buy scheme, plus the shared equity scheme, and plus actually the affordable rental scheme. We'll be publishing the scheme. We published the bill. We'll be moving forward with regulations. I've been bemused by Sinn Féin actually trying to shoot down a scheme before they've even seen it. If they look at the equivalent scheme or a scheme that's comparable to this, and we've looked at other schemes in other jurisdictions. The Help to Buy scheme, which is called in England, has actually increased housing supply by 14% and house price inflation increased by less than 1%. We're negotiating through this scheme. We're working on it because we believe in home ownership. We believe in giving... this has been all afternoon. Sinn Féin have been trying to interrupt me. We believe in home ownership. We believe in giving young people a chance to own their own homes. And we will bring forward a scheme that will work, which is one element of our affordability package.
Minister,
and so those who want to actually already shoot down a scheme before they've even seen it is obviously based on for political reasons and purely that. We're interested in actually... Sorry.
Deputy, please.
There seems to be a trait in Sinn Féin today, just trying to shout people down all day. Deputy O'Brien did the same. You'll probably leave now as well after doing that, so good luck.
Your time is up. Thank you. Deputy...
Can I ask you to clarify this, because the Gask and Corley done it. The Minister again has made an accusation here. The public health advice is for members when they are finished speaking to leave the building or to leave the room. You should not be using that to attack me. I asked 5 specific questions, numbered them. You refuse to answer any of the questions.
Well, Deputy,
and that is not acceptable from a minister in your position.
Please. Count Corla. Thanks for the opportunity to speak in relation to housing. It is a topic that we deal with in my constituency offices on a daily basis, unfortunately. And Minister, you are the Minister for Housing for the State, but you are also a representative for the people of North County Dublin, the same as myself. And as you will know, we represent the fastest growing constituency in the country, and one that has the fastest growing population and also the youngest population, one of the youngest populations in Europe. Many of the people that we represent are renting or looking to buy their own homes. But the housing market across Swords, Balbriggan, Skerries, Rush, Lusk, Donabate, right across North County Dublin, is broken. The Daft.ie house price report for Q4 2020 showed that house prices in Fingal increased by 7.8%. In normal times, this would be bad enough, but during the current pandemic, this is utter madness. Many people across North County Dublin have lost their jobs or seen their wages cut, and we know that from the workers in Aer Lingus who've had their wages cut by 70%. Others have completely lost their jobs. Their income is gone, or they're on the PUP or the EWSS. Nobody in Fingal has seen their wages go up by 7.8%. So how can they be expected to afford a house when prices are increasing at this rate? Dr. O'Brien, when you were appointed Minister in the summer, you said that you wanted affordable homes delivered, costing between €160,000 and €250,000. Where are these homes? Where are they? Where are they in Balbriggan? Where are they anywhere right across North County Dublin? Where are they in Swords? Where are they in any of the areas that we represent? I have a stream of emails, calls and letters each week from young people in our constituency who are absolutely desperate to have security, to have the security of knowing when they close the door in the evening that they don't have to share their accommodation with someone else, that they're not confined to their mother's back bedroom, that they have their own home. It should not be beyond their reach. But what we have instead is cripplingly high rents, and the chance of home ownership gets further and further and further away from these people every single day. And the same goes for council house building. We need to invest now in our constituency, Minister, to make up for the lack of building in previous decades, so that we can tackle the housing waiting list, which we know is just €8,000 at the moment, get people out of the rental trap, get them off HAP and out of emergency accommodation and into decent accommodation that they themselves can own. There are also so many people, especially young people, caught in this rental trap. They don't qualify for social housing. They can't even dream of owning their own home. And Minister, you quoted from some Shannuckles before when you were addressing, I think in your own contribution at the beginning, and I have one for you. Ní lein tintáin mar de hintáin féin. It should not be beyond the aspiration of the young people that you and I are charged with representing, that they would aspire to own their own homes. And I can tell you, from what they tell me, they are desperate. They have lost hope. They do not believe that this is going to happen. They have no evidence to support that, despite the claims from your colleague about all of the houses that she are building. There doesn't seem to be much of it in our constituency, Minister. They are frustrated and they are hurt. What hope for them if the house prices are rising at 10%, their wages are not going up, what hope do they have of ever owning their own home? And we know that the shared equity scheme that you have talked about, we know that that is only going to deliver higher house prices. That's not going to bring home ownership closer for these people. We only have to quote from the Secretary-General of the Department of Public Expenditure, and he said it. The property industry want an equity scheme because it will increase prices. You're continuing with the failed policies of Owen Murphy and Fingal. Minister O'Brien, you are better than that. You have to be ambitious, not just for our constituency, but you have to be ambitious for this state. You cannot simply continue the failed housing policies of the previous government. We know how serious it is, Minister. You must hear it as well as I do on the ground in our own constituency. The people who we represent want to see you succeed as Minister, but they have very little hope. In the short time remaining, 2 questions, and they're just number answers, Minister. They'll be very quick. How many affordable homes, as you described them, between 160 and 250,000 euros will be delivered in Fingal by the end of the year, and how many social homes will be built by the end of this year by your government?
See, in the Deputy's own constituency, which happens to be mine, which I know very well, we'll be delivering affordable homes in Luskin and Rush this year. I don't want to be too colloquial about it. She'll be aware of that. There are over 90 active sites in the area, and I believe in home ownership, Deputy O'Reilly. My party does and this government does, and that's why we want to help first-time buyers. I don't want to shoot schemes down before they've been even seen. So effectively, we will deliver home ownership for our young people. We'll deliver affordable rent.
And Gormalgat and Ara, you'll find in Galway City Council, it was actually Fianna Fáil councillors who voted against certain public housing being built. But I'm glad to hear you want to hear constructive solutions, so I'll go straight into that. Ara, a report released on Monday by the Society of Chartered Surveyors Ireland said that the construction costs for 2-bed apartments in urban areas of Dublin now stands at between 219,000 and 262,000 euro, and yet the Council's own figures for social housing apartment projects, which are built on Council-owned land, showed prices averaging between 304 and 373,000 euro, so a cost of almost 100,000 more on average. And in that report, they calculate that the professional fees attached to the building of a 2-bed apartment to be between 18,000 euro and 21,000 euro, and yet Dublin City Council were charged between 44,000 and 54,000 euro for the professional fees attached to its projects. Now, I'm sorry, Minister, but you don't need to be a chartered accountant to see that there is something clearly amiss here. And people have been pointing out that there seems to be a collusion by competitors to keep prices higher, and that what we need is a normal functioning market, and the state should be allowed to rightfully play its part as a competitor that could drive down these prices. Now, Minister, Dublin City Council tells us, and I quote, all our construction projects go through a thorough public procurement process in line with European Union and national regulations, and at the end of that process, the most economically advantageous tender is selected to carry out that project. But this begs the question, Minister, most economically advantageous for whom? And so it's not just the cost that's a problem. The reality is that it takes at least 18 months from when a council wants to build public housing to actually being able to deliver this housing, and the timeline for project completions is astonishingly slow. Before it could build social homes at Kernamona Court in Ballyfermot, it took Dublin City Council 4 years to get final stage approval from the Department of Housing for the 61 homes there, and for the 30 social homes built at North King Street near Smithfield, it took the Council just under 4 years for the Council to get the final stage approval from the Department. Now, Minister, one of the supposed big achievements of Fianna Fáil in the area of social housing was to increase the value of projects that were eligible for single-stage approval, increasing this from €2 million to €6 million. But, Minister, the increase in the number of houses that this has brought has been minimal, and the increase in turnaround time negligible, and it is quite clear that the procurement process in respect of the provision of social housing has failed. And there are ways to address this, Minister. And Minister, you've asked us to outline ways to how this can be improved and how the delivery of social housing can be improved. So here we are. What we need is a a radical overhaul of the procurement process. Firstly, we need to allow councils to be able to develop long-term relationships with builders. Secondly, we absolutely need increased competition in the marketplace. Thirdly, we need to look at having a publicly owned construction company. And fourthly, we need to go back to direct build. And this is the kind of realism and the kind of honesty that we need in the housing system. We need to fundamentally change the procurement process in delivering social housing and finally remove the shackles and the red tape that is hindering the Council's ability to deliver. And I take issue with what you said earlier in relation to Sinn Féin not wanting houses being built. We have consistently supported in Galway City Council at times when Fianna Fáil Council members did not support this, the building of housing delivery. But Ara, what I'm asking you to do is to remove the red tape and to outline directly how you're going to make it easier and be able to, that councils can fast track the building and provision